Hey, church, this is Vince Miller. Thank you so much for joining me for another devotional. Now, I mentioned this yesterday. I want to say it again today. I have written a book in the Spanish language. It's entitled Called to Act, 5 Disciplines for Every Man. Some of you have already read this book. It's a great book for developing disciplines in men. And I really want to put this in the hands of people in Spanish-speaking cultures. So I got a couple of options for you today. Number one, if you know a missionary or someone working with men in a Spanish-speaking culture, whether that be in the U.S. or in another country, I want to be able to connect with these people and get a case of books in their hands. I want to give it to them. So if you know someone like this, I want you to reach out to me. Secondly, if you don't know someone like this and you want to sponsor being able to put these in the hands of these men, then I would love to have you sponsor maybe a case or two of books that we send to another country. It is expensive to do this, by the way, at times, and I'm not asking you to pay for the writing or the editing or the development or even the printing of the books. We've already done all that. All we want help with is shipping these books to missionaries in other countries or in other places in the U.S. And fellas, if you want to help with this as well, just reach out to me, send me an email, and we'll make it happen. With that, we are in John chapter 13 today. I'm going to read verses 26 all the way down through 30. This is the moment of the betrayal of Jesus. They're sitting at the Last Supper, the Passover meal, they called it at the time, but it would become known to us today as the Last Supper. This is the moment of betrayal. Peter gives a nod to John, who's going to ask Jesus who is the one who's going to betray him, and then Jesus is going to give him the signal on who it is. Here's what it says. Jesus answered to John, "It is he to whom I'm going to give this morsel of bread when I have dipped it." So when Jesus had dipped the morsel, he gave it to Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot. Then after he had taken the morsel, that is Judas, Satan entered into him. Jesus said to him, "What you're going to do quickly." Now, no one at the table knew why Jesus said this to Judas. Some thought that it was because Judas had the money bag. Jesus was telling him to buy what we need for the feast, or that he should give something to the poor. So after receiving the morsel of bread, he immediately went out, and it was night. Now, church, as John writes about this moment, he writes about it in a way that tells us that at least 10 men in the room didn't really understand what was happening at the moment. However, there were two men here who really understood. It was Jesus and Judas. They were both keenly aware of what was going on. Now, if we focus on these two men, we see one who remained resolute and composed in the face of betrayal by really a longtime friend and follower, and another who was seized by selfish intent to the point that his actions would set in motion events that would lead to the crucifixion. Now, I want to let you know this. When I read this text, I am very quickly inclined to judge Judas for his response to Jesus. Yet, at the same time, I've got to acknowledge my own moments where sin and selfishness have taken hold of me. Because, fellas, I've broken promises and shared confidential information and engaged in dishonest behavior that undermines the trust that others have placed in me. I have done that. I've also prioritized my own desires and ambitions and material possessions over the well-being and interest of others. I have also succumbed to things like greed and envy and vices, making choices that go against biblical values. Moreover, I have even failed to take responsibility for my desires and actions, following a path of increasing sin. And the truth is, when I act in this manner, I hurt those closest to me, those very close to me, like my wife and my children and my friends and my colleagues. And more significantly, it is a spiritual offense against Jesus, who extends to me a piece of his body in the form of grace. And guess what? I recognize that you too have experienced the exact same moments. We all have. So today, let's make the decision to resist the temptation of Judas. Let us fight against the satanic impulses that drive us to act on those selfish desires. And instead, may we act on righteous, spiritual convictions that reject unrighteous fleshly gains. Let's resist temptations together that lead us astray into deeper and darker sins. and instead choose a path of holiness. As believers, we got to commit ourselves to being faithful and loyal and selfless to Jesus, who, by the way, was faithful, loyal, and selfless to us in the face of our unrighteousness and sin. And if you're ready to make this commitment, I want you to let me know today by writing this below. I, insert your name, am committing to resist blank temptation. And you fill in the blank. You fill in the blank. And let's resist the temptations of Judas today. I love you guys. I pray this has blessed you. If it has, share it with someone else. And I'll see you right back here again tomorrow.